offensive to liberate northern Holland gets underway, armor of the 4th Canadian Division breaks out of the Cleves area in an all-out drive for the North Sea. Blasted roads are hastily repaired with brush to allow the war of movement to continue in high gear. The tanks advance so fast, the infantry are a day behind, and people in liberated towns are left to celebrate alone. A concentration camp at Bathorn, Germany is overrun. The guard left in a hurry the night before our forward tanks roll through. The liberated prisoners are officers of Yugoslavia, France, and Poland. Their commanding general receives instructions as the internees parade to celebrate their freedom. The first town across the German border to be captured is the communications center of Neuenhaus. Fleeing Jerrys leave the railway station absolutely intact. All rolling stock is in perfect condition and ready to move. The lads take a joyride on a Speedy fueled with German petrol. Meanwhile, south of Arnhem, 5.5s go into action. The second prong of the Canadian attack meets much stiffer resistance. The town of Zutphen is defended to the last by Hitler Youth paratroopers. The infantry have a job cut out for them in mopping up. It is attended to in a thorough fashion. Fanatical snipers left behind by the retreating enemy cause a lot of trouble. Native Hollanders, seeing our troops, thought the war was over. Senseless sniping teaches them differently. The last bite of a dying mad dog is dangerous, but his final hope is going up in smoke. Men of the 1st Canadian Parachute Battalion forge ahead into Germany. Fighting as a unit of the 6th Airborne Division, they seldom go short of dairy products while Jerry farms are still functioning. Riding on British tanks, the force strikes out in a general northeasterly direction. Their goal is the German North Sea ports. Advancing with their British buddies, town after town is captured as the enemy pulls out in general retirement. Greven, Wiedenzoll, Zutte, and Werlte are taken and cleared of snipers. Up to 25-mile advances are made on foot in a day, thanks to the stamina of tough Allied paratroopers. Some of the enemy are in no condition to surrender. Others, after a stubborn defense, yield to the inevitable. All but the most fanatic are willing to admit that Hitler's castle has crumbled. Allied paratroopers are now engaged in the final house cleaning. Stalag 6C near Meppen, Germany, is captured by the rapid 4th Canadian Armored Div advance. Its scenes of utter horror will forever be engraved on the minds of its liberators. 2,500 Russian prisoners of war died of starvation and TB in 1 month in this home of the living dead. Scenes of daily life before liberation are reenacted by those prisoners able to walk for cameramen of the Canadian Army newsreel. Regardless of disability, all were forced to parade daily. Latecomers were attacked by a large German police dog as sport for the camp commandant. A slice of hard, dry bread and a few spoons full of watery soup was the daily ration. Privileged prisoners could scramble in the swill from German messes for tidbits. The dead were thrown into a pit by their comrades who were scarce able to move. When Germany's people are judged for their crimes, not the least of them will be the inhuman treatment of prisoners in Stalag 6C. General Crerar plans the offensive of his 1st Canadian Army in their drives into Germany and northern Holland. In one arm of the thrust, tanks of the 4th Canadian Armored Div drive across the Dortmund-Ems Canal to the town of Meppen, Germany. Opposition is light as our armor moves on the town. Outside the town of Zogel, a terrific counterattack is launched by a recently formed paratroop battalion of fanatical young Germans. Hiding in houses and behind any available obstacle, they have to be flushed out in close-quarter fighting. Non-combatant units aid in the task. German civilians who fired on our troops are rounded up and forced to read Allied proclamations. Meanwhile, another prong of our offensive strikes northwest into Holland. Their immediate objective is the town of Deventer. A great contrast in receptions is afforded by the Dutch people. In Germany, we are conquerors, but in Holland, we are liberators and friends. Between Deventer and Zutphen, Canadians massed across the IJssel River. Initial bridgeheads are established by waterborne troops who make the crossing in buffaloes. Even rafts are used to get supporting armor to the far bank. Under intense shelling, the engineers construct a pontoon bridge for the light traffic. Soon vehicles of all kinds augment the force of the attack. Further south on the IJssel River, troops of a British div launch their thrust to take the never-to-be-forgotten town of Arnhem. Canadian guns fire in support. 8,000 rounds of ammunition from Canadian guns clear the way for British infantry to take Arnhem. It's a great day for the Tommies. At long last, they have taken revenge for their airborne comrades. They are back on ground hallowed by the memory of the men who wrote a new page in gallantry, the men of Arnhem. Under a total security blackout, the 1st Canadian Corps moves from Italy to the Western Theater of Operations. Now the story of the Great Migration can be told. All formation signs and identification marks are removed from men and vehicles for security reasons. Leaving the 8th Army, they reach the port of embarkation in Lake Horn, Italy. Here the tedious business of loading transport for the whole Corps progresses rapidly. It's old stuff to the veterans of the 1st and 5th Divs. They have loaded their equipment on shipboard so many times, they can do it in their sleep. An unnamed corps pushes off for the coast of France. It carries with it memories of many glorious deeds and heartbreaking tasks in the Mediterranean. It leaves behind over 5,000 comrades in the fields of Sicily, Sardinia, and Italy. It took part in capturing nearly 70,000 square miles of enemy territory against desperate resistance. Now it's on the second lap of the journey to join comrades in arms of the 1st Canadian Army. The Incognito Corps arrives at the French port of Marseilles. Here they unload for the last part of the trip. 5th Div alone have to transport over 4,000 tanks and vehicles, 50,000 tons of supplies and 18,000 men. The great task moves steadily ahead without a hitch. By train and convoy, the vehicles and tanks which weathered the Hitler line in northern Italy start on their long trip across France. Around cooking fires, the lads look forward to the day they will swap tales with their pals in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Divs. Finally, the moment of reunion arrives. Their old friend, Field Marshal Montgomery, drives out to meet them. Their old CO of the 8th Army and their new commander of 21st Army Group greets them as one veteran warrior to his pals. The whole great movement is completed in an unbelievably short time. 4 days for the trip through Italy, 24 hours on the water, and 5 days on the road to Holland. Now the 1st Canadian Corps joins the 2nd to add their force to the final blow.
Self-propelled guns of the 1st Canadian Army open the offensive for the Hochwald Forest. Again, British and Canadian troops of the Allied left flank break into a Nazi cordon of steel. The performance of Caen is repeated. Striking southeast from Cleve against terrific artillery and infantry resistance, the town of Kalkar is captured. Under cover of darkness, the German task force holding the town has withdrawn. At first light, British troops move in to find a cowed and fawning populace. They want to make friends, but our troops will have no part of them. The no fraternizing order is well observed. A German ammunition dump goes up in smoke as our armor advances toward the Hochwald Forest. From well-prepared positions, crack German units put up fanatic resistance. Veterans say the fighting is even fiercer than Falaise. In the forest, the Germans try to hinge their last northern defense line between the Maas and the Rhine. Throwing in every available reinforcement to prevent a link-up of the Canadian 1st and the American 9th Armies, the enemy is slowly pushed back. Soon, nothing remains but German dead and knocked-out Tiger tanks. The Hochwald is disinfested. Jerry limps back to his Gethsemane in the Wesel pocket. Grim paratroopers are bagged by hundreds. Some are meek. Some are the most arrogant types yet seen by the Canadians, but their swanking days are over. From concentration camps, they will hear of the last feathers falling from a molting Prussian eagle.
The steady march to the Rhine is kept up by units of the 1st Canadian Army. Against stiff enemy resistance, spearheads of the attack advance towards the town of Xanten. Zonsbeck, a German anchor defense point lying in the path of the Canadian push, is captured. Its ruins are a grim reminder of the devastating power unleashed upon the Nazis. A brief lull gives a welcome opportunity to put on the feed bag. Even the old dogs get a break. The advance is resumed with armored vehicles taking the lead. The first concern of the Canadians is the elimination of the enemy bulge in the Xanten-Wesel area near the Rhine. This is the follow-up of the bitter fighting which took place in the Hochwald Forest. The muddy terrain does not slow down the advance. Enemy opposition is very heavy, with German rear guards fighting viciously to protect the only escape route in this area. Xanten, the key point of the German escape route west of the Rhine, falls. Swiftly the troops roll through the town towards their next objective. Not a single building in the town remains untouched. The onslaught upon Xanten is a foretaste of the future for Hitler's Herrenvolk. The last great obstacle is reached, the slender winding strip of water that is the Rhine. The Army camera sergeant films the waterway from an aero pip. Suddenly, 3 Messerschmitts pounce upon the helpless Oster. Machine gun bullets find their mark in the back of the cameraman. History is recorded even to his last breath. From Canadian ports sail the convoys which are the lifeline of the Army in the field. Now it can be told how merchant ships converted to pygmy aircraft carriers have helped keep it intact. Loaded with 7,000 tons of Canadian wheat, the flat tops combine the function of a secret weapon with those of an ordinary cargo carrier. Navy flyers, protecting the convoy from submarines, have only 100 feet in which to land their planes. All precautions are taken as the landing on a dime operations get underway. Crack British flyers take hair-raising chances every time they come into land. On their missions, they spot enemy U-boats and blast them with depth charges. Streamlined watchdogs of the convoys, they are largely responsible for keeping the subs down where they belong. Only 380 feet long, the carriers evade enemy reconnaissance. Great credit for victory in the Atlantic goes to the baby flat top. From Supreme Headquarters AEF comes the signal to attack across the Rhine. Canadian troops at the left of the line, loaded on amphibious vehicles, leave the starting point. The great drive is on. Following on the heels of air annihilation, forward spearheads cross the river with very little resistance from the enemy. Soon a mass of troops pour across on every available conveyance. The first of the Canadians to go ashore are men of the Highland Light Infantry of Galt and Kitchener. The war of movement starts with a vengeance. As the attack gets underway, at an airfield in England, men of the 1st Canadian Parachute Regiment emplaned. They join their British buddies of the 6th Airborne Division and their cousins of the 17th U.S. Airborne Div in the mightiest air invasion in history. Veterans of D-Day fly to the grand assault. The Canucks plunge to earth with the assault wave. The landing is made near the woods opposite Xanten, some miles east of the Rhine. Heavy mortar fire from tough Jerry paratroopers greets them. Positions are consolidated at the bayonet point as the airborne deluge continues. Medical orderlies treat the wounded on the spot. Soon gliders are bringing in transport and artillery to reinforce the drive. Within 3.5 hours of the original landing, all objectives are taken. Still, reinforcements and material pour down from the skies. Volkssturm or Schutzstaffel, they all look the same when the smoke clears. Hitler's henchmen have bogged down in their own last ditch. A carrier patrol of the Royal Scots links up with Canadian paratroops in an historic meeting. With infantry and airborne consolidated, the Allied avalanche rolls steadily ahead. Within 48 hours of initial crossings, pontoon bridges span the Rhine. Troops and heavy equipment surge over to catch up with the advance. First objective is the important enemy control point of Emmerich. A tank barrage supports the move. In Emmerich, elements of the 3rd Canadian Div mop up the stricken town. The enemy dies hard and counterattacks are frequent. As many as 7 counter-thrusts in as many hours are held, and the Allied grindstone leaves the chaff in its wake. With Emmerich in our hands, the going is easier. The communication center of Kessfeld is taken after an artillery bombardment. Its railway junction lies in ruins. Its road signs point to the town of Münster, invested by General Dempsey. The fat of Europe has been wiped from Jerry's chin with the snowy serviettes now pointing out the gluttons who must pay the bill. In Nijmegen, hopping off point for the Rhine offensive, a mad whirl of traffic heralds the approach of 0 hour. Transport of the 1st Canadian Army is marshaled into starting positions for the drive. For many weeks, a static period has been enjoyed in the north. This has enabled General Montgomery to regroup and lay the foundation for the last round offensive. Finally, supplies and reinforcements are in position. On a day well ahead of schedule, the great attack begins. Signal comes for the lines of waiting tanks and carriers to move off. Anti-tank guns roll up under the barrage of our artillery. Slowly moving ahead on main roads, the infantry crosses the starting line. The flooded country makes amphibious vehicles a vital part of the advance. Jokingly dubbed the Inland Navy, the waterborne infantry is just that. They are even issued with life belts for their hazardous marine advance. Striking out across the German border, they actually sail from objective to objective. Thrust to turn the northern tip of the Siegfried Line progresses favorably. Advances of 1 and 2 miles are made each day. The enemy, meanwhile, reacts sharply with many bitter counterattacks. The 1st Canadian Army advances on a 5-mile front deep into the Reichswald forest. Heavy smoke screens hide their movements. To delay their advance, Jerry has blown great gaps in the dikes. The floating army forges ahead just the same. The Rhine is reached and lined in great depth. General Montgomery comes forward to view progress. To General Quirard, he expresses satisfaction. Monty warns the enemy, my armies are poised for the knockout. German towns are overrun. Beek, Kaken, Verheyen, Kellen, and Cleves. The main Siegfried Line is pierced. In 11 days, 8,000 prisoners are taken. Soon, Allied washing will hang from all battered bastions of the Siegfried Line. Nijmegen, a big event in Canadian Army history, is occupying the attention of all troops. The Blue Diamond hamburger stand is celebrating opening day. Tasty Wimpy specials are well worth queuing up for. Hungry Canadians are right on the job. Built by the RCE, stocked by the Canadian Catering Corps, Blue Diamond eatables are on the house. It's a long time since hot, juicy hamburgers have gone down the hatch. When they are free, they are twice as sweet. Tilburg, social note. In the Protestant church, an all-Canadian wedding takes place. Major Yalmerson, MBE, is the lucky man. Nursing sister Muriel Fumerton is the lucky lieutenant. Smiles and sunshine, not to mention glasses of moonshine, are in order. Lace and confetti convey the best wishes of pals for a long and happy marriage. A honeymoon in Paris gets the life of wedded bliss away on the right romantic foot. Italy. Under enemy shell fire in forward area, a typical army church service is held. The congregation arrives from frontline duty. There's no putting on your Sunday best, just a few quiet minutes in a ruined chapel, and then back to the job of war. Army padres of all denominations are soldiers plus. Human and kindly, their lives from day to day are an inspiration to all troops. Australia. Canadians arrive in the land of the kangaroo to aid in the war against Japan. Specialists of the RCEME form a vanguard to the main body who will soon be knocking around the Nipponese. Australia's General Planch, with Canada's High Commissioner, takes the salute. When the spotlight swings from west to east, Canadians will be in there pitching.
Prime Minister Winston Churchill arrives at the Canadian area in Germany for a tour of inspection. General Simmons, 2nd Canadian Corps Commander, conducts the party. On a gun sight, the PM fires a 9.2 heavy against German positions. The dauntless leader receives a grand welcome from Dominion troops. Churchill tanks are used as bleachers. Men of the Highland Division and their pipe band are out in force to greet the chief. In the bleak days of 1940, who would have guessed that in 1945, England's Prime Minister would be eating Spam and chips in the heart of the Siegfried Line? In Italy, human mascots supplant animals in the soldiers' favor. The Westminster Regiment adopts John Simoncelli. John's home was in Cattolica. He now accompanies the regiment as interpreter and chore boy. Another company found Gino in a shell hole. As his whole family were dead, he was adopted. Gino is very proud of his uniform. His stripes are awards for his progress in speaking English. A potential new Canadian citizen is Honorary Corporal Gino Bergaglia. In full native regalia, a Holland hornblower heralds the start of an important drive. The good people of Nijmegen are out to collect all they can for their not-so-fortunate countrymen. Anything in the way of money, food, and cigarettes is cheerfully accepted by the fair canvassers. Their good friends, the Canadians, are asked to help. At a wireless camp, the basket is well filled up. The gifts collected in Nijmegen will be a godsend to those Dutch families who have suffered from the effects of total war. It's time for the face-off in Maple Leaf Gardens. Before a crowd of 11,000 fans, the Chicago Blackhawks tangle with the Toronto Maple Leafs in a clean-cut, crowd-pleasing tilt. Crowding Chicago nets are many new names and many old stagers in big-time hockey. Kennedy breaks up a Chicago power play and sails down the ice to score for Toronto. All during the season, the Blackhawks and the Leafs have been battling it out. Going into the playoffs, Montreal Canadiens keep their edge with Detroit second and Toronto third. In the last period, the Hawks break through but fail to score. The Leafs hold their advantage as the bell goes to end the game. Toronto 8, Chicago 4.
Continuing the drive into Germany, armor of the 4th Canadian Div overruns a strong point at Friseute. The armored brigade reduces it to ruins as they hunt down snipers and repel frequent counterattacks. Heavy machine gun nests and motor detachments are rounded up, and the advance continues. Forward recce units, probing enemy lines, take over another Jerry airfield at Kloppenburg. The runways are bomb-cratered from our air attacks. Numerous 1,000-pound incendiary bombs still lie intact. They will be returned to the enemy with interest, the hard way. Another prong of the Canadian attack strikes toward the North Sea. Men of an Ontario infantry battalion and a Western tank unit attack the Dutch town of Groningen. While the attack is still in progress, civilians try to save their homes while under sniper fire. For them, the lines of prisoners are a happy sight. It means liberation and a return to the normal way of life. The third arm of advance is aimed at the Zuider Zee. At Dieren, tanks of the 1st Canadian Armored Brigade link up with the brigade of the 1st Canadian Div. Veterans of Italy are welcomed by hysterical Hollanders. Driving ahead, our armor outflanks the town of Apeldoorn. Hollanders don't need the inducement offered to round up stray prisoners. The outmaneuvered army scatters like chaff in a wind. Rolling along in high gear, armor of the 5th Canadian Division goes all out in the race for the coast. Hutton is overrun, and the infantry left to clean up. Finally, the objective is reached. At Harderwijk, 5th Div consolidates its positions on the shores of the sea. So ends victoriously the magnificent drive through mud and flood to the Zuider Zee. General Cris and Prince Bernhard of Holland take the place of honor during a victory parade held in the historic city of The Hague. The first such ceremony held in this city since the German capitulation sees representatives of all Canadian units taking part. Particular ovation is afforded Prince Bernhard by his countrymen on his return to Holland. Also taking part are members of the Dutch MBS, who fought against the German invaders so valiantly and determinedly. Together with all Canadians, they march forward in peace to a better world. Rotterdam is now open to the first food ships from England. The tremendous task of relieving the plight of the starving Dutch is rushed forward with the arrivals. LCTs are brought into action to help distribute the eagerly sought food. Because of difficulty in clearing river bridges, the original plan of LCTs delivering foodstuffs wholesale has had to be abandoned. Instead, the cargo is carried to harbor sheds from where it is distributed. All facilities are brought into play to unload quickly. In the past, food shipments arrived by air and overland routes. These were found not to be sufficient. Work was rushed to reopen the port of Rotterdam. The majority of foodstuffs now arriving consist of sugar, salt, flour, and tin soups. To thousands of Hollanders, the food ships end privation and herald a return to healthy diets. The lid is off one of the war's most bizarre secrets, Pluto, the oil pipeline under the channel. It first saw the light of day as an experiment conducted in the Bristol Channel. Laying a test pipeline across the bed of the channel, oil is delivered for months to unsuspecting West Coast citizens. The idea, now a feasible reality, is developed further. Factories begin turning out the special flexible pipe, later to be wound on huge drums. To British engineering skill go the honors for developing this unique achievement. Shortly after D-Day, the pipeline is laid across the English Channel. From specially constructed ships and drums, the line is paid out. The whole operation is completed without mishap. The great secret is never discovered. Pipelines are laid. 5 stretch from England to Cherbourg and 15 to Boulogne. Upon reaching French territory, overland extensions are laid. Once completed, the pipeline is gushing over 1 million gallons of petrol per day to the Allied Army. As the armies move forward, the pipelines are quickly added to. Canadian engineers help extend them to forward areas. By the end of hostilities, Pluto has delivered 120 million gallons. High-pressure pumping stations in Britain are skillfully camouflaged. Oil, which has been brought through a 1,000-mile network of pipelines from various British ports, is sent on its cross-channel flow. Thus, Pluto has made possible the uninterrupted flow of vital fuel to mechanized Allied armies battering into the heart of Germany. After nearly 6 years of bitter conflict, a Nazi Germany, beaten to her knees at her own game of war, gives up the struggle. In a marquee tent which represents 21st Army Group Advance Headquarters, Field Marshal Montgomery accepts the unconditional surrender of those enemy formations opposing his forces.
This to include all naval ships in these areas. These forces to lay down their arms and to surrender unconditionally. The German command to carry out at once, and without argument or comment, all further orders that will be issued by the Allied powers on any subject. The German delegation will now sign this paper, and they will sign in order of seniority, and General Admiral von Friedeberg will sign first.
One by one, the representatives of a beaten mob of gangsters sign the terms which put their hordes completely in the hands of the conquerors. The day of ambition's fulfillment has arrived for the great tactician Field Marshal Montgomery and his comrades in arms. The triumphal note which was first sounded on the sands of North Africa has swelled to a mighty crescendo of victory, resounding around the world.
Now I will sign the instrument on behalf of the Supreme Allied Commander, General Eisenhower.
The mighty German mechanized army collapses. Now it's not so mighty and not so mechanized. To establish communication between the Allies and the surrendered army, German signalmen lay cable toward Canadian lines. Here they meet a line section of Royal Canadian Signals. Both groups work together to complete the link-up. Soon disposal orders flow through to German commanders from Montgomery's headquarters. Following the enemy's capitulation, a conference is held in which Allied sub-commanders instruct their opposite numbers on the German side in the procedure to be observed in making the surrender. On a Canadian front, General Blaskowitz and his officers receive instructions from General Fuchs and his staff of the 1st Canadian Corps. Commanders who faced each other a few hours ago across the battlefield now meet face to face across the conference table. Disgruntled and beaten, arrogant Nazi generals are dispatched to carry out the bidding of the Allied High Command. The organization works smoothly. Under Allied supervision, the disorder of the defeated German army resolves itself into orderly surrender. Warlike gear, which once terrorized a stricken Europe, will now be forged into tools of peace for German hands to rebuild countries shattered by their fury. In the center of empire, with hearts beating high with pride and joy, crowds in their millions await the official word that victory has been won in the West. Britons from the dominions, the colonies, and the homeland, with guests from occupied countries, stand in hushed expectancy, eagerly awaiting the pronouncement of Britain's Prime Minister.
Yesterday morning at 2:41 a.m. at General Eisenhower's headquarters, General Jodl, the representative of the German High Command, and of Grand Admiral Dönitz, the designated head of the German state, signed the act of unconditional surrender of all German land, sea, and air forces in Europe to the Allied expeditionary forces and simultaneously to the Soviet High Command. Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight, Tuesday, the 8th of May. We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing. Today is Victory in Europe Day. Long live the cause of freedom. God save the King.
Forgotten for the moment are the grim years of sweat, blood, and tears, as in scenes of mad abandon, London celebrates the long-awaited V-Day. The disastrous months of 1940 are far, far away. The horrors of threatened invasion and Blitz bombing are mere specters of the past. Shoulder to shoulder, civilians, workmen, housewives, and service people of the far-flung empire have made this day possible. They have the right to celebrate. They wear the mantle of victory. Before Buckingham Palace, excitement reaches fever heat as the moment arrives when the royal family makes an appearance. For a glimpse of their beloved monarch in his hour of triumph, loyal subjects have stood for hour after hour. Now their wishes are fulfilled. Now they celebrate together the great day of triumph.
Today, we give thanks to God for a great deliverance. In the Far East, we have yet to deal with the Japanese, a determined and cruel foe. To this we shall turn with the utmost resolve and with all our resources. But at this hour, when the dreadful shadow of war has passed far from our hearths and homes in these islands, we may at last make one pause for thanksgiving. First, and let us remember those who will not come back, and their constancy and courage in battle, their sacrifice and endurance in the face of a merciless enemy. We have come to the end of our tribulation, and they are not with us at the moment of our rejoicing.
The day is one of thanksgiving the world over. In Holland, there is real cause to cheer. The capitulation of Germany has literally saved thousands from death by starvation. Their Canadian liberators are feted, and ceremonies of thanks are held for deliverance. General Crerar addresses his 1st Canadian Army.
Victory Day, at long last, has arrived. The business we Canadians came over here to do is virtually finished. The military might of Hitler's Germany is a horror of the past. And in this prolonged and bitter struggle, now crowned with victory, the Army of Canada has played a sterling part. Canadians are entitled to be very proud of their soldiers. I am certainly proud beyond words to count myself one of them. We have reached the time when the great and gallant company which has formed the 1st Canadian Army is about to dissolve by groups and by units, with anticipation and joy in their hearts, tempered by the memories of the friends they have lost. The Canadians who have survived will be returning home to Canada. I believe that the future of Canada rests in their hands. It will be a grand future should they be given the opportunity in peace to prove and practice the admirable characteristics they have demonstrated in war.
Back in London, VE Day draws to a close, but the celebrations still go on. Not in one day alone can all the pent-up joy be released. The world has been saved from the clutches of one oppressor. Now we turn to smash the other, thus joining peace to victory, a peace which will last 1,000 years.